Councilmember Peterson will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No prayer today? Then God have mercy on all of us, please. At this time, members of the public may only comment on an item appearing on the agenda. Please adhere to the following when addressing the council. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes or less. Comments should be directed to the council as a whole and not directed to individual council members. City Clerk, are there any registered speakers? Is this?
Yes, Mayor, there's a few on your...
Okay, I'd like to have
Okay,
Stacy Olson please come up. 5A and B, or 5B.
Hello, Council. Mayor Pro Tem. I am, but do I need to speak louder? I understand that every council member has received a letter from the unions, etc. And one of the concerns was cost on this item. If it's a cost, that's an issue. ARPA funds can easily cover the cost at no cost to the taxpayers at all. No cost. And ARPA has plenty of funds to cover that. Not to mention it's a very small amount in consideration to other things that we've spent money on, a lot more money on, that would not have even a small impact that this would have. This would have a large impact. It also increases transparency, democracy, and citizen involvement, all of which this council has sworn themselves to provide the citizens. And there's no better time than now to put this on the ballot alongside a presidential election. It will guarantee more citizen participation, and economically speaking, it will never be done. It will never be done more cost effectively than right now. The majority of citizens do not know at any given time who the mayor is of Hemet. We all know this. This is because it is done in-house annually without any participation from citizens. No better way to create citizen participation and a sense of community knowledge and cohesiveness in our valley than to allow the citizens to choose who their mayor is. If they were smart enough to choose you, they are also smart enough to decide whether they want this or not, and if so, who that person would be. As far as the treasurer position, I definitely think it needs to not be an elected position. They need to qualify. They need to go through the process. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Dale Dillman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I'm here to oppose to voice my opinion against the idea of a direct election for mayor. I think we have a good team going right now, and I think that it could very possibly seriously weaken the hand of our city manager. I would hate to see that happen, really strongly hate to see that happen. And as far as the item 5B, the idea of the appointed treasurer, as your treasurer right now and being appointed by the city council, I think has worked out just fine. I would keep it that way. I would not change that in any way. I would let the city council appoint your treasurer, whether it's me or anyone else. That's what I would recommend. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Dave Prieto. I didn't drink.
Hello, Council. Dave Prieto, President of Hemet Firefighters Association. I'm going to read you the letter that I sent to Council last night. Mayor and council, we write to you on behalf of the Hemet Firefighters Association, the Hemet Police Officers Association, and SEIU. The special meeting scheduled for today is deeply concerning to us. At face value, it looks very rushed. Considering that in order to get these items on the March ballot, the city must file a resolution with the register of voters no later than 12/8, which is tomorrow. What's the rush? Why the sudden push to change the entire way in which the city of Hemet is governed? What can't be accomplished with the current city council that can be accomplished with an elected mayor? According to the staff reports, at $70,000 per question, the 4 questions special election will cost a total of $280,000 of public funds, which does not include the cost of redrawing the council districts and additional ongoing costs of having a citywide election for a mayor rather than a district election for a council member. In less than 2 weeks, it appears that the council members, 3 of you, are in favor of moving towards spending over $300,000 to fix something that isn't broken. To put that into perspective, SEIU members have been negotiating for relief from an over 13% healthcare cost increase since July of this year. SEIU is still waiting for the city to make a fair offer that puts puts the employees and their families first. Meanwhile, the city council has doubled the reserve policy from 20 to 40%, and now the majority wants to spend over $300,000 on a maybe. Where exactly are those funds going to come from? Does the city have hundreds of thousands of extra dollars just lying around? The city has significant infrastructure needs, labor issues, and long overdue deferred maintenance citywide. It's no secret that John Petty has convinced council to overrule the mayor with a majority vote to call the special meeting today. Special interest groups are not new, and there's nothing wrong with them. However, if the aforementioned gentleman wants this unnecessary change, then he can pay for it, not the taxpayers. The current question and study of annexing 3 large parcels into the city also raises many questions regarding an elected mayor, considering that effort is also being championed by John Petty. At the very least, as with any other big change, the city council would designate an ad hoc committee, conduct polling, hold public meetings, and take proper steps to analyze such a change, weighing the pros and cons. This very quick and last-minute effort to change the structure of the city council does not give voters even 1 day to think about it or talk about it. Notice was received in my email box 24 hours and 4 minutes before the start of this meeting. Voters deserve the right to discuss the matter with the current elected officials and have reasonable time to decide if and how they will be affected. In my 20 years with the city, politics in Hemet have increased in intensity significantly with every election. Failing to make this a public discussion with adequate time will not improve the spirit of our elections. At this time, HFFA, HPOA, and SEIU are opposed to an elected mayor and 4 council districts and an appointed city treasurer. In keeping with the city council's direction of fiscal responsibility, we simply cannot afford it. We urge you to please vote no. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Prieto. Richard Bruce?
Good afternoon. I'm here in opposition as well. If we can find $300,000 to spend on realignment of districts, let's take care of the employees. How many of our members were here at last meeting talking to you guys about the shortfalls and you guys not taking care of us as employees in our benefit packages? That would cover a large chunk of what we're trying to take care of. It's time to stop taking care of the special interest groups. We all know who they are in this valley. I've been here 40 years. Take care of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. The end of the speakers. Is there anyone on Zoom? Oh, you have another one? Lori Van Arsdale. Fireman's carry, please.
I don't care. Let me just have my thing. Thank you. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I had a fall. Lori Van Arsdale, 228 Jelly. Came here very concerned about both the subject and what it does to our way of government and that we've had for 15 years. but also the way this was put on the agenda. I think that the emergency calling of this meeting was done wrong. I question the way it was done, and I would like to read this into the record. The city council may submit to the voters the question of whether to have an elected mayor pursuant to Government Code Section 34900-34900 or through 34906. However, those sections do not touch whether this can be done by a special meeting or only at a regular meeting. City council sponsored initiatives are to be submitted to the voters by means of an ordinance, not a resolution per election code 9200, 9222, and 9224. Generally, ordinances must be adopted at a regular meeting, not a special meeting, per Government Code 36934. However, it is possible to adopt an urgency ordinance at a special meeting. See second sentence in Government Code Section 36934. The kicker is that an urgency ordinance needs to articulate a reason for urgency. One of the accepted reasons for this, the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, and safety, which contains a declaration of the facts constituting an urgency. An urgency ordinance needs to be passed by a 4/5 vote. Government Code Section 36937. So here's 3 arguments. It did not receive the proper 4/5 vote. It does not recite sufficient facts to constitute an emergency, and failure to take action in advance of the election cutoff is not an emergency, and holding the matter as a special meeting chills the ability of the public to comment on the council's action on an election issue that I would say has a tremendous impact on the city and how the government is run. I would ask why this came about. I would ask what was the motivation, and I would sincerely ask you to consider that this meeting was not called legally. And I would also tell you that I have contacted the District Attorney's Public Integrity Office about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Arsdale.
Mayor, I respond to
Attorney,
those?
yes,
Okay.
please.
So the question of the wisdom of submitting this question is to the council. The question of the legality is something that I will address immediately. I have great respect for Lori Van Arsdale. She's incorrect when she is discussing the legal requirements for submitting a measure to the voters. Those legal requirements are found in Elections Code Section 9222, which says that the legislative body may submit to the voters without a petition, a proposition for the repeal, amendment, or enactment of any ordinance to be voted upon at any succeeding regular or special city election. The proposition may be submitted, or a special election may be called for the purposes of voting on the proposition by ordinance or resolution. The city council is not adopting these ordinances here. The voters would be adopting the ordinances at the special election that is called. Therefore, there is no need to adopt an ordinance today or to adopt an ordinance on urgency. So respectfully, I strongly disagree with the legal assertions that have been made, but I'll leave the remainder of the comments to the council's discretion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So with that, then we'll continue the meeting. Great, thank you. We'll move to our. Oh, is there anyone online in Zoom?
Thank you, Mayor. If there's anyone on the Zoom call, now is the time to raise your hand. And if you'd like to participate on any of these special meeting agenda items, now is the time to raise your hand, and we'll give you just a few moments. Seeing none, Mayor, there's no public comment.
Thank you, sir. We will move on to our first discussion item. Who's going to give the staff report?
I'll be giving the staff report, Mayor. So the first item is a is the treasurer's item. So this is two sets of resolutions. The first of which would submit to the qualified electors of the city of Hemet the question of whether to make the treasurer an appointed position or not. The second resolution calls for a special election to be held on March 5th, 2023. My preference would be to do those as a single resolution. The Registrar of Voters prefers to get two resolutions from us. So we're going to do it their way and send them two resolutions because that's what they want. In terms of the effect of the proposition or the measure that is being submitted to the voters, essentially what we are doing is we are converting the elected office of the treasurer into an appointed position that will start either at the end of the current elected city treasurer's term or upon the vacancy in office. So sometimes if these things pass, the current elected treasurer sometimes would resign. At that point, the city council would then have the opportunity, or the city manager in this case would have the opportunity to appoint the treasurer. That was the way I wrote the ordinance. I wrote the ordinance so that it was a city manager appointed position. I did that because the current version of the ordinance that exists has the city manager appointing the deputy city treasurer, who does almost all of the functions of the office anyway. However, I did want to point out to you that you do have the option of having it be a city council appointed position. But again, I was following the current practice that we have and the general idea that we have a city manager form of government. It also would allow, if it was a city manager appointed position, it would allow consolidation with an existing position. For example, the administrative services director may be a good position to consolidate that role into, thus allowing some cost savings. Are there any other questions? It's pretty straightforward. It would be a simple majority to pass at the March 5th, 2024 election.
Before we continue on, I just want to understand something. 5B, and that's for the discussion to make the mayor an elected position.
Yes.
And one of the arguments, to my understanding, is to give the people the right to vote for the mayor. Is that correct or incorrect?
I'm not going to be making arguments in favor or against the propositions. In fact, my role is to provide an impartial analysis for all of these measures. I would assume that those who support it would say that
Jackie,
the purpose is to elect the mayor. Yes.
Because I heard that stated from someone that we want to give the people the choice to vote for the mayor.
Yes, that's
Okay.
part of it, yes.
Okay, but on 5A, we're taking the people's choice away and making that what? Right now, it's an elected position where the people have the choice to elect the treasurer. Is that correct?
Yes,
So we want to take their rights away from the treasurer and then turn around and give the rights for mayor. So I don't understand the argument. If we want to give the people the rights to vote for certain things, shouldn't we allow them to vote for the treasurer also? I mean, that to me just is common sense. I mean, we're taking away the rights from the people and then switching.
they're very different positions though, and a vast different amount of responsibilities. The mayor has a plethora of duties, whereas the treasurer is focused and has one major duty. So it's easier to consolidate the treasurer with something else than a mayor.
Mhm.
So
So
they're very different in their positions and the responsibilities overall.
okay, so right now we're a general law city. And we're gonna change our charter, I suppose, sometime down the line to make it to take away that general law and make it a chartered city, or so we give the power to the mayor then. Is that correct? Is that what we're looking for?
Let's just work on the first one first. I would
I-
prefer just to take it
Go ahead.
to the treasurer.
I would agree with Joe. I mean, if we're taking the power away from the people on one hand and giving them to power the people on the other hand. And I would just like to know what additional responsibilities legally does the mayor have that each of us as individual council members do not have? And that's a question. I
Yeah.
mean, the three of you are wanting to do this, so you want a strong mayor? That takes
Not
major changes. That's not what we're talking about here.
No. Because we're going away from our charter. We're going to eventually change it. It will eventually get changed if we go this route.
That's
I see
part
it,
of this
I see
discussion.
it coming. I
What actually does this entail? Is it a strong mayor? Is it just like
Well, right.
Paris and Menifee have, that they have no power other than if two other council members agree with them on an issue? This isn't Riverside and it's not Los Angeles.
Right. We're a lot smaller.
What are we going for? Why are we willing to spend $300,000 on something we know nothing about?
And eventually change our charter.
I think that the city's had a problem with stability, so that having a elected mayor gives the people the choice to choose who's the figurehead for the city. And then to speak to the treasurer, I mean, these are questions that will be put forward to the voters so they can decide if they want an appointed or an elected treasurer or an appointed or elected mayor. I mean, I don't think that we're taking anything away. I think we're just asking questions.
We're going to pay $300 to ask questions. Or $300,000.
Okay, so it sounds like we're combining the two issues. So, and it's a discussion. So right now, I have been asking people on the street, friends, acquaintances, who is our mayor? Hardly anybody knows who our mayor is. And I ask them, do you know how this person is selected? They have no idea who or how our mayor gets selected. If we would have an election for a mayor, it would be on the ballot. They would see the different candidates. They would know who's up for mayor. They would have a say in their government. If it was on the ballot, they would vote for a person. Then they would look to see if their person was elected. And so be it, yes or no, at least they would know then who the mayor is. We get comments all the time on the mayor's not doing this, the city council's not doing this, right? This way, the people have a say of who their mayor is, and they can be a part of our government and our city. You see the participation we have at some of our council meetings, you know, but yet everybody wants to complain. So if they elect a mayor, it's their person. It's not your person and my person.
Well,
And every
we go by
year-
a majority vote here, so it's, if three people vote, they elected one of the three possibly. So I don't understand where you're coming from on this. It's just, to me, it's ridiculous. I got calls from people that you talk to and they're saying, what's wrong with Jackie? What's up with her? She got mad because I told her there was no need to do this. And she got upset with us. I don't know why. And that's what they told me. That's the calls I got. And I'm like, well, you know, we're just going through some, you know, see if we're going to do it or not. I don't know. It may not happen. And a lot of people are against it. They don't want, and a lot of people don't want to spend the money.
And there are, if I can just add to that, and you're absolutely right. People don't know, they don't know who the mayor is. They don't know who their council representatives are. I can ask people in Four Seasons that don't know that you're their council person. So it's people's lack of participation, and having an elected mayor isn't going to make them more knowledgeable. It's not going to make them more caring. We've got probably 30,000 people who live in the county who will swear they live in the city limits of Hemet. We had people applying for planning commission who said on their application, yes, I live in the city limits. They didn't. There was only one that knew that he was in the sphere of influence. So I don't think spending the money to elect a mayor who is not going to have any more power than our current mayor has, name recognition is only worth so much. And if people don't pay attention and don't do their own homework, a name on a ballot isn't going to force them to do it.
I think it's better for continuity though. it's every year, almost every year we change our mayor. So they have to get used to the city manager and how he operates and how they work together. So that takes time. The mayor meets with the city manager way more than we council members do. He has a direct line of communication. And every time we change, it takes another person to get acclimated to working together with the attorney, with the other department heads and such, because they have a lot more contact with the city manager and the staff. So I'm looking for more continuity also.
We can fix that for $0. Just reelect the mayor. That's all you gotta do.
We've
I'm-
done that numerous times in
Yeah.
the past. We've had people who.
That's all you
served
have to
2 and 3
do.
years.
I mean, we don't have to spend $300,000 to go this route. It's ridiculous. I mean, we act like we have money to just throw out and do whatever we want to do with it. And we got people that they had raises after 17 years or so, and they're still under every city around us under what they make. I have a nephew or a cousin or something that works for Paris. I tried to get him over here, told him, you'd be great here in Hemet. And he laughed at me and he said, why would I go work for somebody that doesn't pay, much? He goes, I make $12, $15 more an hour in Paris than I would make here. And I got a good job, which you guys don't even have that position over here. And he's more like a handyman. He fixes things. He's good at fixing things. And he would not come here because of what we pay them. Then you want to go and spend $300,000 just to change it to mayor so people know who the mayor is. Well, maybe if people studied a little, and I didn't know who the mayors were before I got into the council, and thank God I did, but for the wrong reasons. I mean, it's amazing how little we know as a community. People don't want to learn if they don't want to get involved. I was commander at the American Legion for 3.5 years, and it was the same people helping over and over and over because no one wants to get involved. No one knew this or knew that. We tell them, hey, we're going to be putting something together for something we're having on the weekend. I need you guys to help. Same people, 2, 3, 4 people, and that's it. People just don't want to, they don't care. And by electing a mayor, they're not going to care. I'll guarantee you that.
So we're not making changes, we're asking questions. So I think that needs to be clear, is that we're just asking the voters, do you want to have an appointed or an elected treasurer? Do you want to have an appointed or an elected mayor? It would also give the voters more, they would have more of a voice because they could select a mayor and a council member from their district.
Not necessarily. Go ahead, Mayor.
Would you guys be willing to maybe postpone this, but then do a community
Please.
forum? Like we have a couple meetings, like actually talking to other people and coming together with the community and things like that? Because if the voters did decide to go elected, does it matter when it goes elected?
Yes.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Well, it does for this year, though. I mean, we have to
What's
get
the
it
rush?
on the spring
What's
ballot.
the rush? Statistically and historically, when something this important, a change in the governing body of a city, something this important comes before the council, there is polling done of the community. There comes back and says, are the people really interested in this? Are the people willing to look at this? Is this in the best interest of the city? What is the cost benefit? How will the structure improve how the city functions? Those are all legitimate questions that we should not be making, at least as far as this particular thing. This is a big, big deal. Part of my questions is, what's the urgency? Why now? I mean, why can't this be something that is in a long or a midterm range plan? We actually talked about doing something about the city treasurer 4 years ago. And it was, let's do this so that it doesn't cost the city money. We will put the elimination of the position on one general ballot. And at the next one, however it works, so that it wasn't unnecessarily burdensome financially for the city. It was explained to the people, and there was enough time for people to actually find out what was going on and to voice concerns or agreement or whatever. Something this important needs public involvement. We have one person from the public who's in favor of it. We have two people from the public who are not in favor of it, and we have 300 employees who are against it. What does that tell you? This is being rushed,
But
and
what
there's no need.
that tells me is that we're taking the lead of someone that wants to change, and for maybe just for their own special interests. They have the money to get whoever they want elected as mayor. They have the money. They can put the money in and get someone elected that they want as their choice. They want to eliminate his job and change our charter to where the mayor, it's a strong mayor instead of a weak mayor. And I already see everything the way it's set up. I already know what's going on. And I don't, and you know, Linda, because I went against you because I do not support special interest groups of any kind. I try to be fair to everyone. This is not fair to our workers. This is not fair to our citizens. And this is just fair for one person so that this one person can get a mayor in and have control of this city. And I'm not for it. I don't do that. I don't do it.
I disagree. Because like I said, I talked to a lot of different people and they all thought it was a good idea for them to be able
Then
to.
why did I get
elect-
calls and them telling me they didn't?
What's that?
And they told you they didn't, and you got upset with them. That's
What are you talking about?
about you talking to citizens and telling them what you want to do. And they told you that, you know what, that's crazy. What are you talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about.
okay,
Everybody I talked to thought this was a great idea, Mayor. I don't know who you're talking to, but everybody I talked to thought it was a great idea because they wanted to be more involved and be able to choose their mayor.
I would just like to add that I agree with Malcolm that something this important needs to have more conversation. If this is something the city is looking at, not one person. And I would ask the question, Jackie, how did you come up with this idea?
It's been talked about before.
Whom?
There's a lot of people that have talked about it.
Okay, so I'll let you off the hook there. But Malcolm, I think you're absolutely right. If this is a general direction that the city wants to look into, there's so many ramifications and things we don't know at this point. Like what would the structure be? Look at Menifee. They decided that they would be a mayor and 4 districts, as is Paris, as is La Quinta. Their mayor has no power.
Can I maybe jump in, Mayor?
There's all sorts
I've been trying to
of
be kind of,
things. Yeah.
you guys are having a good conversation.
Yeah,
trying
but there's
not
so
to
many
control it.
options that have not even been brought up.
But I
Let's
wanted to
voice some of
clarify
them.
just a couple of comments that I had heard. And I think speaking to Councilwoman Krupa's points, this is a good time. What would happen if this was approved is one of the existing districts would be eliminated at the November election in 2024. So we would go from 5 districts to 4.
Right. So
Um,
what, 1, 3, and 4 would be eliminated.
One of the ones that is up for election
Right.
would be eliminated. So we would have to redraw the maps in the interim period. So we have 4 districts.
And what approximately was the cost the last time we had to do
It was
this?
$44,000.
Okay,
There should be,
top of the 380.
yes.
there would presumably be some economies of scale since we've already done the demography and we already have done a significant amount of the work, but there would be a cost associated with that. So you would have 4 council people and 1 mayor. That mayor, I've actually, just because I was working on it, I already drafted a draft impartial analysis. And that was the elected office of mayor in a general law city has all the same powers and duties as a city council person.
Right.
And would also be able to make appointments to boards, commissions, and committees unless otherwise specified by state law or ordinance.
Which we currently do now.
subject to the approval of the city council. So, this would not in of itself create a strong mayor form of government, Mayor. I know that you're concerned that that's maybe where this is going. But I did want to say that this measure itself would not fundamentally alter the structure of the city. It would still be a city manager, council form of government. The mayor would be elected at large, but would be a city council member in the same way that the mayor is now for all intents and purposes, with a few additional powers and duties. Okay? Hope that answers the question.
It does. And my next question would be, what would be the cost benefit?
I don't understand. Well, so people will know who their mayor is. I mean, why are you laughing? That's what she said. Don't laugh.
We'll take out a billboard with your picture on it, okay?
I was in favor of like having this discussion today because, and you sit down and you think about it for a while and I had the same fears as him. And then you kind of look through it and you're like, well, power distribution isn't going to change and it's going to remain the same. I particularly like this group. I think we're a strong group right now. And so I talked to a couple, I don't want to say their names, but I think that you guys would deduce from who I spoke to, but concerning the other cities that have a similar kind of thing where they elect the mayor. And one of the biggest cons that they were saying was it's not necessarily that it's going to affect the citizens. It'll affect the citizens in the long term, but it's going to affect us more than it is going to be them. Because if we have someone at the helm all the time, and let's say we don't like that individual, we would end up making it hard for them to get anything approved or anything like that. And then we would slow down the progression of the city. And then, because like right now we're in a good forward momentum. And I think that something like this would, after a considerable amount of thought, it was like, I was thinking, I don't necessarily know that this is the best case for us to make the decision. What I would rather see is if this is really serious for the citizens, if this is a really serious thing, is that they do a grassroots type of initiative where they go around and they gather all the citizens, because to some of your guys' points, it doesn't seem like the citizens are as engaged as they should be. And if they were engaged as they should be, then we wouldn't have measures throughout the state of California that's undermining police departments and all of these other things. And then at the same time, since I've been on council, I keep seeing like small numbers of people stopping things from happening. So, my heart is still broken over the whole recovery village thing, but it's like, how come we can't have these community forums like we were saying with the recovery village, where we have these talks and going to the people directly and saying, hey, this is what we're thinking. What are your guys' thoughts? But instead of us making the decision, if the citizens are really serious, and this is what I do in my own clinical practice with people, if you're really serious, I think you're going to do the work to ensure that it happens, instead of it just relying on the people behind this dais. Does that make sense? So the pros for doing something like this is you get this continuity of, who's going to be the mayor for the next 4 years. But then I can't see any more pros beyond that, because the mayor is not going to have more power than the rest of them. So the cons are really going to be on our side, where what happens if you guys get jealous? What happens if the person who's the mayor starts to drive an agenda that we don't necessarily agree with? And then all of a sudden we have all of this controversy just within our own ranks. And I think right now, since I've been on council, we've developed a group that's really working well together. And yeah, we disagree on some things, but we're kind of a lot of yeses, and we're moving the city forward. And so, yeah, my name's on there because I was interested in having this discussion out in the open in front of everyone, but I do believe that I don't think just because you have it on a presidential election would mean that you'll get more engagement. Theoretically, you would, But I think that's something that should be addressed from the root, in which how do we engage our citizens to be more involved without having to cheat, so to speak, and put it on a presidential election just so that we get more votes. I saw an email come across my, I read an email where it talked about different percentages of, maybe, I think it was in your district, you only got 30% of the voters, and then you only got 1%. And these numbers, I know they're wrong, but of the people who are registered to vote, you know what I mean? So then we didn't even have good participation then. So it's like we keep making these decisions based on 3 or 4 people within the city instead of really going out. And I know it's going to take time and effort, and especially someone like me, I have to take a lot of time off, but to go out into the community and say, hey, listen, this is what we're thinking about doing. We're thinking about having a recovery village. We're thinking about having a homeless shelter over here. We're thinking about changing the mayor to an elected position. And we go to these people and we say, hey, this is what we want to do, instead of because my biggest fear is, and this is how it kind of morphed. My biggest fear is, I don't want the citizens of Hemet to think that just because they can elect the mayor means that the mayor is going to be able to do more than what we are already doing right now. Does that make sense? I don't want them. I'm fearing, because based on certain decisions that have happened and have come across the dais, is that people assume things are going to happen because a decision was made, and then because we're back here, we know all the ins and outs and the little intricacies of things that are happening. They don't see that part. So they're going to see, oh, we can elect the mayor now, which means this guy's going to he's going to eradicate homelessness. That means he's going to increase public safety. That means he's going to bring jobs. And we're all trying to do that right now. And the person who gets elected, the people are going to be putting all their faith into this one individual, and he's not even going to be able to do more than what we can do. And so I don't think that would be fair to that individual who would have to, and then not only that, that person would have to spend a significant amount of more money to run for the office, because now they're going to have to campaign across the entire city. Now we created a barrier to people who maybe have aspirations to come up and be on city council or be the mayor at some point. We created a barrier economically for them, because now it's going to be more expensive for them to campaign and run. Or they get corrupted by some kind of special interest group and then try to drum up the funds that way. You know what I mean?
And that's what will happen.
So yeah, you see my name on here because I wanted to see the discussion happen. I wanted to see the points that were made. And I keep seeing that there are more cons than there are pros. And the only pro is that we would have the guy or the gal for 4 years. And just like to the mayor's point, we could just keep him as the mayor for the remainder of the time.
Okay, I'll take it. Thank you. Oh,
You know what I mean? So it's like, if it's about that, or if it's about that, we could probably spend a significant amount of money less and do something more informal and run a voting thing on the phones. If you can do it for, I think you can dance. I'm pretty sure we can do it for here. Text 84, or 1 for yes, 2 for no, 8, whatever our number is, and then we could get the vote like who's going to be the mayor out of all 5 of us. Versus, don't.
all right.
But you know what I'm saying? So right now, I'm one of the ones who was in favor of this meeting, because I wanted to have the discussion out loud, and I was hoping that you guys would kind of think in long term of, let's actually go out there, because the people want us to go out there. They're like, we don't see you guys. Let's go out there and have these this communication, or this with the actual people out there, because since I've been on council, I keep hearing the citizens want this. And at no time have I seen a list generated on who these citizens are. I can't, who has the list of, I want to see signatures of these people who are in favor for whatever, because that's even if it's informal, and it's easy to create one on Google Docs. and you can put a freaking QR code on it. So it's easy to spread out. And you can say, hey, who's in favor for this and who's in favor for that? Rather than, because if we do spend 280,000, now we're going to have to justify why we spent 280,000. And then we got these guys talking about they can't get raises and things like that.
Anyone else?
Again, it's just giving the people a choice. It seems like the discussion is really focusing on something that's just inevitable. But it does give the voters the choice. So I kind of just want to highlight that.
I understand that, and that's what confuses me, because you want to take the citizens out of the treasurer, even though you say, well, that's just one job. But still, we're taking their voice away from treasurer, but yet we want to give them the voice for mayor.
Well, we're giving them options. We're not taking anything away.
Well, you're
It's-
suggesting, no, you're recommending, you're whatever. I just don't understand it. Anyone else?
You know what? I'll make the motion to leave it the same.
Can I get a
That we
second?
what?
To leave it the same.
Did not change anything.
I agree. I'll second that.
Can I get a vote, please?
Are we doing these together or separately?
Oh,
For me, it's all the same. My
Awesome.
motion's for both
both
of them.
5A and B, is that okay, or do we want to?
I think we could interpret that as a motion to table items A and B. To table items A and B, which simply means to take no action on them at this time. They won't come back unless the council asks for them to come back.
Okay, are we voting on machine or?
Council, please cast your votes. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lowenthal, second by Councilmember Krupa for items 5A and 5B to table these items. That motion passes 3-2. Councilmember Kendrick and Peterson voting no.
Okay, so we're done. Okay. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned to the next city council meeting. Thank you for coming.